Hi, it's Bee with Crafting Daily Dose. Thanks so much for joining me. Today I've got an alternative for the March 2023 Paper Pumpkin Kit called 10 Years of Growth. Now this is an especially great card for your favorite book lover because not only is there a beautiful bookcase on the front, but you're also giving them a little hidden treat. When they pull on this, they get a matching bookmark to use. If you would like to make this card, stay tuned. Here are the pieces for this project. The card base is Orchid Oasis cardstock, and it is 8.5 inches by 5.5 inches, scored down the middle at 4 1/4 inches. I also have a piece of basic white cardstock for the inside message panel. This one is 3 3/4 inch by 5 inches. From the kit, I'm going to be using this card base as well as the envelope. We're going to cut these down together. I'm also using this plant die cut and the pot die cut, and then I've added a piece of the Fresh Freesia open weave ribbon. This is about 7 inches in length. This time I'm stamping with Fresh Freesia and Shaded Spruce inks. I'm also using the Label Me Fancy punch to create a slot at the top of my bookmark for the ribbon to go through. You can use anything else that's similar in your stash or create a hole using your Take Your Pick tool or another pointy object. We've got the supplies and now we're ready to get started. Let's begin by cutting down the envelope. We're going to cut off this decorative panel here, so I'm going to line up this border between the white and the printed pattern, and I'm going to put it right along the center of my track here on the trimmer. Next, I'm going to take this piece and trim it down to 1.5 inches. So I'm going to place it at the 1.5 inch mark over here. It's nice that there are all of these vertical guides going down, so I know that my piece is straight. Here's what my piece looks like so far, and then I'm going to turn it counterclockwise so that the second longest side is along the top. And now I'm going to trim off these diagonal edges. So right now we've got a little trapezoid, and then we're going to turn this into a rectangle. So I'm putting this point right here. And I'm just going to straighten that out. So you can see I've cut off this little triangle wedge, and now I've got a straight edge on the side. I'm going to turn it in the other direction and do the same thing. This time I'm picking this corner and putting it right along the track of my trimmer. I didn't quite get it, so I'm going to put it back in and try again. And when you're done, this edge is going to be 5 1/4 inches. Now here's that little leftover piece from the envelope flap. I'm putting this back into my trimmer, and I'm going to take some random slices. They're about 1/8 inch in width, but I'm not being too precise in trying to measure that. For thin pieces like this, I bring my blade to somewhere in the middle, press down into my paper, and then cut up and down from there. If you start your blade at either the top or the bottom, you're more likely to meet resistance and you might make that paper tear. Don't forget to hang on to these strips. Now let's work on cutting down this card base. I'm going to start by trimming off 1/4 inch from this side. So this time I'm using the measurements that are over here on the right, and here is my 1/4 inch mark. I'm going to line that up. Now I'm going to rotate this. My bookcase is now upside down, and I'm going to place this at 3 3/4 of an inch, which is right here, and I'll go ahead and cut that. So basically what I ended up doing is taking a 1/4 inch from each side of the card front. Now I'm going to take a 1/4 inch from the top and from the bottom. Now for the next part, what I want to do is to create a little slot that is going to go right above this shelf here. And then I'm going to create a similar one right underneath this shelf, and both of them are going to be the same width. Now you might feel more comfortable to do this with a craft knife, but I'm going to show you that you can also do it in your trimmer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to line up the edge that I want to cut with where the center of my track is. And I can eyeball that, or I can also take a straight edge like any piece of paper and line that up where I want it to be. What that does is it basically extends that line up to right where the edge of my track is so that I can check and make sure that it's where I want it to be. Once I have it in place, I'm going to use this notch here that's on the side of the trimmer blade, and that's going to help me know where I want to be. So I'm going to line that up with the bottom edge that I can see of this brown line. So once I have it where I want it, I'm going to press down into the paper, and then I'm going to go down until that same notch lines up with this edge. Now ideally at home you would want to have your edge right over that blade. I'm working at an angle here, so my cuts may be a little off, but it's still going to be fine. So here, let me show you where that cut is. So you can see I started in the right place. I went a little bit too far, but again, it's not that big of a deal. It will still be fine. Now here's where my paper was. In order for the bookmark to have enough room to move, I need to make this cut a little bit wider. So I'm going to scoot my paper just a little bit. I'm going to move to the left, and I'm not even going a full tick mark. I'm kind of in between tick marks right now, and I'm just going to go to the next one. So basically it's half of a tick mark. So it's something like 1/32 of an inch. Really small. Do the best that you can, but don't stress if it's not perfect. Now I'm noticing as I do this that I'm going from about half of an inch down to 2 1/8 of an inch. I'm keeping that in mind because that's going to help me out later. So here's what that looks like so far. We have 2 parallel cuts that are right next to one another. And let me lift this up so you can see. Just like that. And now I'm going to do the same thing, but up here. Now up here I don't have that same visual guide, but I'm going to go down to the same measurement as I did before. So here I'm lining up this line with the center of my track as best as I can. I'm going to press this down. Now I'm going to scoot my paper a little bit over to the right. If I look over on the other edge, I can see that I'm moving about half of a tick mark again. And I'll make the same cut. So once again, I've created two parallel cuts right next to one another. Now I'll take my snips and I'm going to connect those cuts to one another. So sliding down one blade so that I can get in between. And so now here's what that looks like. Here's the other side of the card base, and I'm going to use this to create the bookmark. So I want a 1.5 inch piece. If you look over here, the edge of this white space right here is 1.5 inches. So that makes it easy. I'm going to just line it up with that. Now I'm going to rotate it, doesn't matter which direction. I'm going to trim this down to 5.25 inches. And then here's the bookmark ready to go. Now for the stamping. I've got the silicone craft sheet down and I'm stamping the message panel for the inside. I'm just stamping the plants in shaded spruce and fresh freesia. If you would like to, you can also add your sentiment here on the inside. Next, I'll be stamping onto the bookmark. And then finally, we're going to stamp onto that bookcase panel, and I'm going to use a sticky note, or you can also use masking paper here. I'm going to block off this lower shelf so that I'm going to be only stamping onto this square one right here. Now we're ready to put everything together. First, I'll glue the envelope flap to the back of the bookmark. Now from the front, I'm going to make a little mark to help me find the center. I can use my grid paper to help me. So this is 1.5 inches in width, which means it's going to be 6 of these squares. If I pick the middle of that, that's going to be 3 squares on either side. I'm going to make a little mark here. Now I'll take my punch and open it up by sliding this. And I'm going to place this into the side that I want, and I'm using that dot that I made as a guide. So I'm going to eyeball the center of this. Now I've got my ribbon. I'm going to double it up and then take that loop and slide it through the slot here at the top. Once the loop comes through, I'll take the ends of my ribbon, put them through the loop, and then cinch it. I can trim down the ends of the ribbon later if I'd like to. Now I'm going to take my bookmark and I'm going to weave it through the slots in my bookcase. So it's going to start out under, up here at the top, and then it's going to go through this first slot, and then down through the second one. I'm going to line up the bottom edges here. And the reason that I'm doing this is because now I'm going to glue on the die cut, and I want to position it so I can see the top of my plant. I'm going to put some glue just underneath these top 3 leaves here. And I'm going to carefully slide the bottom of the plant through in the same slot as the rest of the bookmark, but I'm just going to slide it on down until I'm happy with where these top 3 leaves are. And once I am, then I can press them down. Okay, now to test. I'm going to go ahead and pull my ribbon out. And you can see it's going to be really important that I go back in and secure the leaves down, the edges of the leaves down, so that there's no catch point. This part is a little bit tricky because I haven't secured down all the leaves, so they're going to want to catch in that slot. So just be careful. Now I'll go back to add glue to the rest of the leaves. I'm using a scrap of cardstock as an applicator. And because the stem here is flexible, I can scrunch up the leaves to make sure that everything fits nicely on the bookmark. After you have all the edges of the leaves glued down, go ahead and reinforce it with your bone folder to help smooth down the edges even further. Start from the stem and work your way out. That way, if you miss something that's not quite glued down, it won't tear. Now for the bookshelf panel, I've taken 2 of those extra strips from the envelope flap and I've trimmed them down. This larger one is about 1 inch wide, and then this one is a little bit less, maybe 3/4 of an inch. And I'm going to use them to create some new books for this shelf so that it isn't so plain once the bookmark is taken out. And if you notice with the other books, there's some spacing in between them, even when they're stacked vertically. So I'm going to do the same thing here as I glue these down. Now the pot is going to be glued down on that bottom shelf. Now I'm going to slide the bookmark back in. Now I'll check one more time to make sure I don't have any major catch points. Now, if you're struggling with this, you can consider covering the top surface with something like contact paper or packing tape, just to make it smooth. I'm going to turn this to the back and I'll show you where I'm adding the dimensionals. I'm going to add one to each of the 4 corners and then a couple of other strategic places to help this panel stay elevated. That's going to make the bookmark easier to remove. So you can see where I placed the additional ones. So I can keep those parts that are above this slit and below this one elevated. we're quickly checking to make sure that this is not upside down. And then I'll center that panel on the front of my card. Once you've finished assembling your card, take your bone folder and very gently slide it into the slot. Be careful here. You're just creating a little bit more space there, and that's going to help make sure that the bookmark can slide in and out more easily. There's our finished card. We've got the stamped message panel on the inside that you can add a sentiment to if you would like. And on the front, we've used the beautiful bookcase with all that gold foil detailing. Plus, of course, there's the bookmark that the recipients can remove and use. And even when the bookmark is out, the seam is still complete with some great detailing. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you've enjoyed this dose of creativity. If you get a chance to try out the project, I would love to see it, so share it in my Facebook group or tag me if you're sharing elsewhere. If you're interested in Paper Pumpkin but don't yet have a demonstrator, you can find the subscription link as well as all of my other links in the description box below. I hope to craft with you again next time, and until then, have a great day.